You can't have a person come into your house and your kitchen is off. You can't do that. So that was a great example of something that I knew and grew up with. I just want to give you a little background first of all before we speak. I would really love to get the different generations, the different people who grew up in the neighborhood, born in the neighborhood, who came to the neighborhood to speak about their experiences of being in the neighborhood and about the film. But I would like you to know a little bit about the director, Diego Echeverria. He was born in Chile, but then went and lived in Puerto Rico. From Puerto Rico, he went to study film at Columbia University and began working as one of the few Latino producers in television, doing TV reporting. And he got this amazing opportunity to do this documentary, which was unprecedented, because at that time, there was rarely any money to focus 16mm film on Latinos. And he got the privilege of doing that, and he got an incredible budget. I mean, today will be over $300,000. And he used it very wisely. The first thing he did was he moved into the neighborhood for almost a month. He didn't show a camera, they had no sound. He just went around, hung out in the corners, hanged out in people's shops, and he asked questions. He took his time to get to know the community and people he might be interested in filming. And he had tremendous access. In the end, when you see the scene of them in the bedroom, which is an amazing scene that tells you that he had built a relationship with that family. So he did a wonderful thing. And the other thing he did was he had a real knowledge of the Puerto Rican experience or Latino experience in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, in Manhattan. And he had done a short film in 1981 where he focused on the migration from Puerto Rico to New York. They came in ships, many of them, through the Navy Yard. And many Puerto Ricans were living near the Navy Yard because there was single family homes and also rooms for let. And what he focused on there was seeing how they were adapting to this new life here in the United States. He also continued traveling. He went back and traveled around the world, and then he continued making movies. And one of the things we found after a New York Times article came out, a university somewhere in the Midwest said they had a box of his work, his film, which he didn't even know where that went. They found it, which is hopefully something new, a lot of new material that we didn't even know existed. And also for those who didn't know how this film got revived, there are two friends of ours, when I mean ours, my wife and I, Paco Deones and Pam Yates, found they had a VHS copy of this film. And they brought it over to Union Docs, and they showed it to them, and they fell in love with it, and they wanted the originals so that they could make copies from there, and found that there were no originals. The lab that had the originals didn't have it anymore. So they went on a search with the help of the public library, the Manhattan Public Library, went on a search looking for 16mm copies all over the United States, and they finally found one, which is what you're seeing now. They restored it, cleaned up the audio as best as possible, cleaned up the coloring, and this is a wonderful gift that we have. And of course, as you saw in the opening, Union Docs continue promoting the idea of Los Sures and documenting stories told by neighbors and friends so that it could be kept in a file in case any other filmmakers here in the room would like to make a movie about it. And that's a little context so that you know about him and what his work was. And one of his interests was filming women in Williamsburg. He felt, Diego Echeverria felt that the women were the saviors of the community. Without the women, it wasn't going to go anywhere. So he really wanted to focus in on how women survive and how they made things work. And I thought that he did an amazing job at that. Now, how many people here were born in Williamsburg? Right there. Okay, we got one. How many people?
Wait, does it count if your grandparents were here?
No, I'm saying that you were born here.
Well, ancestors.
Ancestors, yeah. And how many people came here in the 70s? 2. How many people came here in the 80s? Good number. How many people came here in the 90s? Good number. How many people came here in were born in 2000? I know. Right there. Great. 60s. All right. And now that we have established that, I would like to open it up for questions and answers. But it is very important that we give everybody an opportunity to say what they want to say the way they want to say it. Any experiences you've had that was similar to that, for those who grew up, or anything you want to say about anybody in the background, because I know a lot of people that were in the film. Marta's kids used to come to in front of our house, and Shirley and Ernie, they were best friends with them across the street from us on South 4th Street and Rodney. And many of the other people that are in the film, maybe were not my friends because I was younger, but Cuso was always up and down the street. So that was very, very common to see. And my brother who's over there, do you know Evelyn?
I know all of them, almost.
Almost all of them, right, you see. And that's what makes this film so special for me as a filmmaker, is that I was told while they were filming, a friend of mine said, oh, they're making a movie around the block. And I'm going, okay, that sounds like, you know, Eddie Murphy and the other one that were being made on North 5th. No, when I got there, it was just this guy with his camera over his shoulder and the guy with a boom, and I'm going, but that's not a movie, you know? So I went back home and I was not definitely interested. And later on, I end up doing documentaries, which is amazing that that this connection. So I would like to open it up for you to tell me, anybody, there's a microphone there, where do you know anybody in the film, and what does this film mean to you? Anybody? Okay.
Hi, I'm Estrella's Melvin's sister, and I came from the Dominican Republic to Williamsburg in 1974. And as a child, you know, this just brought me back, you know, the pump and being outside, which is in Williamsburg. You know, we grew up in South Fork and Rodney. Our house was there in, next to the park, in Rodney Park. And, you know, my memories of that is just, it's like, you know, free. We were free children who were like outside playing, you know, in the summer, and the fire hydrants and the fire escapes. But the sense of community, I think that's something that I cherish from that time that we have lost. But in that time, we would look out for each other. We were always outside. Pretty much, you know, my cousin would say we were unsupervised. But we also came out of, we were product of Williamsburg. You know, and I was, me personally, I was able to, and a lot of my brothers and sisters, our mother, as my stepmom, Melvin's mom, like Melvin said, the woman, you know, woman was strong. And we, you know, held the unit, the family unit. And we, as, you know, kids that grew up in Williamsburg, we were able to go to college. All of us went to college, and it was 10 of us. And I'm the, you know, I was the baby, and I went to college in Oklahoma. And I did my master's at Columbia University. So we are part of Williamsburg, and I'm proud to be part of Williamsburg. But this brought back good memories, so thank you.
I guess being the only one that was born in Williamsburg, I brought back a lot of memories. We left Williamsburg, I think in 1976, it was the bicentennial year. I was only 7 years old when we left, but our family was established here, so obviously Mel and Clara were here, and I think what anchored us was the church on South 9th between Bedford and Driggs. I think it was my father's great uncle who established the first Spanish Free Methodist Church there, and it's still there. So today I think it's the last building remaining on that block. I think that's where, what my Clara was saying, that really held us together. So I really don't, I mean, I was young, but we still came in, because that was the church that we still came into the late 80s. We were still coming to the church there. My mom didn't give us a choice but to bring us to the church. So we really grew up in the foundation of the church in Williamsburg. So the crime element, I remember gangs existing, but I never felt any danger being outside. Like outside Clara, we're outside unsupervised, just playing kick the can, red light, green light, 1, 2, 3. Everybody knew who you were, double dutching. So I didn't. Most of the film I saw was sort of looked like it started in the early 80s. And by then we weren't living here. We were moved to Sunset Park, so it was kind of, which had their own gangs over there as well. But that's not really, some of it wasn't the Williamsburg I remember. Some of it was like dominoes playing, men just outside, you walk up and down the block, people were just sitting down by a table playing dominoes or playing the congas. I remember on Friday nights, you just go outside your window, you had like free music outside all the time. So those are the things that I remember, that I vividly remember, and the movie brought me back to like sort of a time capsule, seeing my childhood growing up in Williamsburg. So it was a really good movie.
And I would like to add to what he was saying. The church was, and it's great when you're 7 years old and you're innocent, because what he didn't say is what we all saw who were adults. There was a building, abandoned building across the street that was a pharmacy.
Yeah.
Listen to this. The building was abandoned, but it was a pharmacy. And there were people waiting online, at least 40, 50 people waiting online, 9 a.m. for the pharmacy to open. Opium, heroin, LSD, anything you wanted. All you do is you put in your $10, and you say what you want, and they go get it, and they bring it down to the door, and if the cops are passing by, they use this phrase, "Tato," which means everything's fine, "Tato bien," everything's good. That way you keep an eye on the police. So, when you're innocent, which is when I was early on, we got into the United States, to Williamsburg in 1969, and there were at least 50 gangs. And to go to school, we had to pray we make it to school. And then leaving school, we had to pray we get out of school, because it was that bad. So that's why 84 was a good period. Before that, it was probably even worse. So yes, it's nice to be innocent. And I thought, my family, we were rich. It was only when I went on a job to film in the Hamptons that somebody made me realize that they didn't want to hang out with somebody who owned a $6 million home. I'm like, what? And what it is it depends on point of view. To us, we were happy, we were a family, we were all eating, we all went to school, so it was satisfying, which is amazing. Anyway, somebody from the 80s. Peggy?
So what I was curious about is when everybody raised their hand, and I also recognize a number of artists that I know from Williamsburg early days, most of the people that raised their hand in the 80s and probably the 90s were artists that moved in. Raise your hands if you were artists that moved in during that time, 80s or 90s? Mm-hmm. Fair amount of people.
Post-art.
Post
I
stories?
would not define my work as an artist.
Oh, then come on.
I'm serious.
Really?
Yet alone, that's another discussion.
Okay.
I believe in cultivation and relationships with neighbors. And that's what we were doing. But we didn't make art, some of us.
Okay.
Very different discussion.
All right, interesting. I would love to hear people's stories of their experiences also moving in, because I feel like if we had seen this film during that time period in the 80s, because we moved in 87, or 86 or 87, I think that would have been really, really wonderful to have seen this film and thought about differently our environment that we had just moved into. For the people that were moving in from elsewhere where it was quite different, would have been really wonderful to have that experience of knowing these stories or just thinking about it differently. In addition to meeting people on your block and trying to get to know people. Does anybody have any stories they want to share?
A quick story.
Sure. I want to, I guess, echo the woman over here who studied at Columbia, is it? What's your name? Clarabelle. Yes, I remember the sense of joy in the streets of Williamsburg. The vibe was amazing, and it was contagious, and some of us were deeply moved by the culture of the whole area. Although I got held up at gunpoint, and the best fireworks I ever saw was funded by the drug dealers on South 2nd, because I lived on South 2nd. But I remember just looking up at the skies and watching these things 10 feet over my head. Not in the distance, it was all around us. But there was so much to learn from Brooklyn. And for that, I'm forever grateful.
Great. The other thing that the director said that is important to bring is that when PBS, who was screening this film, was also going to screen not only New York, but Boston and other areas, it never got screened. It never screened because this was a story about Puerto Rican people. And at that time, it didn't seem like an important or valuable document. So it just went along unannounced. And then all of a sudden, a year and a half ago, or a year ago, I was asked by Union Docs to help market the film. And I went for a meeting and they told me what they were wishing to do with this film. And with the help of Metrograph Theater and myself, we were able to get not only Vogue magazine to write about this film, but New York Times, pretty much every magazine, film magazine, wrote about this film because it was such a rare and wonderful find. At the theater, Metrograph, in 9 weeks, it made $100,000. It sold out pretty much every show, which made this also amazing. And I went after every screening, first introducing Diego to the audience. Then after the film screening, I went and asked people why you came to see the film. And of course, there were Latinos who were there who were like, oh my God, that was my experience. And they were like, that's my neighbor in the background. And then I asked people who came in the late 80s, 90s in particular, and they said, I felt guilty. And I said, well, what do you mean? Why are you feeling guilty? This is a movie that happened way before your time. And they were saying that they feel that they, after coming in later through gentrification, had a negative effect on a lot of those people because those people are no longer living here. And it brought in a whole new debate that I had not thought about exactly in that way, is that we all have a part, which is what Peggy was suggesting, that we all have a part. Whenever we move to a different neighborhood, we should consider what's happening in that neighborhood. How are we affecting that neighborhood? Something that we didn't think of in the past. So it's very, very interesting. Now, is anybody here from the 90s? Up there. Can you give us a view of your vision in the 90s?
So for me, I was at North First in Berry, and so that's the DMZ for I was the Polish side. So, and it was all Polish, and I moved in a factory which was abandoned, which many of them were, so we became loft dwellers. And but the Polish neighborhood of North First was very tight, very close, and they just died off. And the Polish community is still strong, was always stronger in Greenpoint, but it lost its hold. And it's still there a little bit, but as the people aged out, the church, every year I see fewer people going to that Polish church that still gives Mass in Polish and had a Polish school right there. So that was like this other, every Saturday was packed with people bringing their kids from other neighborhoods back to the Polish side. But the most, I guess the most profound thing with the film, and I do think you did an amazing outreach. This film got, I saw it, it was unparalleled how well it did. And I just was overwhelmed with the access. And the first character who just admitted, you know, starting the cars, selling the drugs. I mean, people don't usually reveal that part of themselves that's maybe seen as negative, and there seemed like no judgment from the filmmaker, from the, you know, that character was able to open up, and I wondered if you knew more about that, and, you know, I know you said that scene in the bedroom was so intimate and amazing.
Did the police see the film? How did you
This, you should know, the filmmaker said he never went with him to where there was stealing. He made sure he stayed away from that part. Now, yes, he was stripping the car in front of the camera, but that was after the fact. He never went with him to watch him do it. But at the same time, what he did say, Diego said in reference to him, and pretty much to everybody else, is that Diego took a lot of time to really spend in the community. He really didn't want to have a camera in the community until they trusted him and they gave him that access. And this character, in the end, you should know that he ended up becoming a super in a building and had a very good job. So that was a very, very positive story. He died last year. And then Kuso, who, when you saw him working really hard, he was using heroin exactly while the film was being filmed. And nobody knew that he was living like that. And then later on, he went cold turkey and decided that he didn't need that in his life. And he made a tremendous change and became an advocate in the community for people who wanted to quit drugs. And he went in to help people. And he also passed away not too long ago. So those are two people that we've lost. Martha ended up also having a pretty good job. Moved out of the neighborhood that she never wanted to move out of the neighborhood. So that was very positive. And Evelyn, who to me is my hero, that female character is like I don't want to diminish her qualities by saying she's like a man, but she is her own person. The fact that she goes to the fire truck and grabs the mic and says, let's get the community galvanized. To me, that was, you can't get any better than that. That is just amazing. And we had, and I knew many women like that in the community that were just dynamic. So that was really wonderful.